Hello, folks.
Good evening.
Okay, may we wish a very happy good afternoon to everyone, and welcome to the Township of Douro-Dummer and a special council meeting here today. And this meeting is for basically one purpose and one purpose only, and that is continuing the process for our 2021 budget. So we welcome everyone, and I've got to say our new system this year has made things much simpler and much easier to understand. So I thank everyone who's made all this possible. I remind members of council that we are coming to you live on YouTube. It is also being recorded so that our residents or anyone else can watch this meeting at any time. I'm going to call the roll so that we are assured that all members of council are present. First of all, Deputy Mayor Moher.
Here.
Councillor Watt. Councillor Landsman. And Councillor Watson. Okay, thank you very much. And the staff that are present with us today, we welcome our CAO, Alana Arthurs. Alana, big wave from you. Thank you, welcome. Our Deputy Clerk, Martina Chade-Hartwig. Martina, thank you. Our Chief Building Official, Brian Fawcett, is with us. Brian, good to see you. Our Fire Chief, Chuck Peterson, is here. Chuck, thank you. Our Assistant Manager of Parks and Rec, Mike Mood. Mike, thank you for being with us. Our CEO of the library, Ann Landry. Ann, are we seeing you? I'm sure you're in the background there somewhere. Our temporary treasurer, Paul Kramer, is here. Paul, big wave from you. And Paul, again, I've got to thank you for all the hard work that you put in to make this new budget process so streamlined and so easy to understand. I think we have a small trophy coming your way at the end of all this, so way to go. And our Legislative Services Administrative Assistant, Nicole Zenner, is with us. She's the one who is pushing the buttons. And did I get Jake Condon, our Manager of Public Works? Jake, believe me, I would never want to forget you. So with everyone here in attendance, I will officially call the meeting to order at 5:03. And I remind any members of council, if you do have any pecuniary interest, to please let us know. Seeing no hands, we will continue. And again, thank you to members of council for your cooperation in getting your questions into staff. The many questions that you've had about the budget, regardless of how small they seemed, it was very much appreciated. And it gave staff the opportunity to get a fulsome answer to all of these questions. And that is what has made this process move along so well. So without further ado, this is getting to be one of the final steps in our process. And I'm going to turn things over to Paul once again. Carl, did you want to make a comment first? You're muted, Carl.
Sorry. I only received the answers to my questions. I would appreciate the answers to others' questions as well, or maybe they'll come up during tonight's meeting.
I would hope that would be what will happen tonight.
Okay.
Yep. Let's hope so. So, Paul, without further ado, between you and Alana and Martina, I'm hoping you can address all these questions and review everything for us. So, Paul, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Jones. I think where I'm going to start today is I do have a bit of a budget update. I think with this process being new, there may have been a little cross up in terms of what we thought the process would look like. We were able to answer everyone's questions. I think staff answered questions or managers answered questions where they were able to, and I assisted on a few answers as well. I'm not certain, I can't speak to which answers went to which counselor. My thought process was that each counselor, after getting their answers, could decide to bring that item forward at this meeting for discussion or decide not to. And I think we can still go that avenue. I'm looking to our CAO for a little direction on that. But I can start with giving a little bit of an update to the budget, as there are a couple updates that need to be noted. So if I can share my screen. I'm just curious what people are seeing right now.
Budget deliberation meeting.
Okay.
It's Paul, actually, it's the Blue Jay game. You're on the wrong channel. Just kidding.
Okay, so it does look like you're seeing.
We're seeing the budget update screen.
Right. Are you seeing some video on the left side of my screen?
No.
No? Okay, that's just on my screen then. So there's good news and bad news here. The bad news is we did catch a data entry error, and that was actually thanks to Deputy Mayor Moore when he was asking about one of the major discrepancies from last year's budget to this year's. The difference was showing a $70,000 increase in materials and supplies for transportation services. The good news is that the input error went the good way. So we had added a 0, and by catching that, we have decreased the budget by $58,365. So I know that that's not a round number. What we were able to do, Jake Condon, the manager of Public Works, and myself, we hadn't increased some accounts because that category was already showing such a large increase. So we were able to increase some of the other accounts that we would have liked to previously to the level that they should be at to reflect what the projected budget is. Upon a little bit more time to do a little bit more review, we did notice a larger increase than we expected, or larger decrease than we expected, for salaries and wages at Waste Halls Glen. Upon further review, the hours that we were allocating to the attendant positions there were not enough, and we increased them to what they should be, and that resulted in an increase of $11,668. However, when you combine those two changes, it is a $46,697 reduction to the levy, or 0.9%. This is a follow-up to one of Councillor Landsman's questions. Thank you for checking all my numbers. I can take it offline to describe. I did do a double check on the numbers that you presented in your email to staff, and to the numbers that I've been presenting. I can do a little bit more detailed explanation, but one of the things you did catch was that in the capital presentation on March 17th, The project for Waste Halls Glen was not included on one of the slides. However, it was included in the budget package that was distributed a few days prior to that meeting. That project is still proposed and has not been removed. It was just not included on one of the slides at that meeting. So this is the table that I presented at the two meetings last week. But what I wanted to do is to show after these changes where the budget is sitting. So we were at 4.7% last week. By decreasing the budget 0.9%, and I'm seeing that the numbers don't quite add up. There is some rounding things going on, and I've played with, so 4.7 less 0.9 would be 3.8. It's, it's the second decimal place. I double and triple checked my numbers, but at 3.9% there after the updates, and after considering, the total impact to per 100,000 of assessment, it would be 2.5%. So at this point, what I do have a table set up and ready to go that essentially, if council brings any recommendations or changes to the table, that I can input it into the table, and it should, keyword should, calculate the impact and show where the updated levy is after the proposed change. And that's where this meeting is, or my presentation and my update from the last two meetings comes to an end.
Okay, no, thank you, Paul. I wonder then, should we, for the benefit of everyone following what Carl said, review the questions that were submitted by the members of council so that we all hear the answers. Carl, would you maybe want to start with yours?
I think all of mine were routed, replies were routed to each of council members.
It's just that the public have never heard them.
Okay, sure.
That's all I'm getting at. Just a review, not necessarily a detail.
Yeah. No, I was very, Alana and all the people involved, I appreciated you answering those questions very much. It was very much of a helpful to me. My first question was, I broke it down to manager. So I'm a little bit over around about here, but waste management cause of a $51,000 bump in 2021. And the reply to that was extra contract costs associated with the new waste contract. And when that was brought to my attention, I recognized that and do remember that now. The $70,000 bump on material and supplies under transportation, Paul, just looks like Paul and Jake already worked at that. The remaining question I have when it's time is there's a negative bump under repairs and maintenance under transportation services. And I suspect that should be positive, but if those numbers are positive, will that not affect the bottom line of the 3.9 that we're talking about here? So I'll leave that aside. I don't need to break away here. My next series of questions were a $3,000 bump from Martina was on the corporate services, bump on counselor contract services, and that was due to further training associated with the rollout of the service review. 34,900 bump on planning and development. As per the service review discussion, are we not planning to contract most of this work out to county and outside agencies versus in-house salary and wages? And the reply to that was that that's basically a realignment of closer to where the cost should be shown. And I assume that 34.9 bump will be coming out of other departments. And I'm sure Martina, if we need to know that, I'm sure it's there. The next one was from Brian on the 24/700 bump on other expenses for protection services bylaw. And I believe the reply to that was a follow-up in the budget presentation on the, pardon me here now, where are we? Oh, the increase in other expenses is the allocation of budget for indirect expenses. Normally, this has been captured in the budget stage and instead allocated in the actuals. So we are attempting to catch this in the budget moving forward. My further question was an $8,000 bump on contract services under source water protection. The $8,000 increase is actually only a $4,000 increase, as there was no budget for 2020. However, it should have been included in the 4,000. The increase from 4 to 8 is due to new contracts that were signed in 2021 and subsequent years. Service levels have increased due to changes in legislation prompting the increase. So, and then Chuck, there was a couple questions there. 15,000 on bump on fire training and travel and training, and very detailed list of all the courses required. Thanks very much, Chuck. Also, the appears to be no revenue line on the budget to record the new fees for the fire permit, etc. And looks like that's going into reserves. So that's, as long as it's been captured, that's fine. I assume we'll see something in reserves when we look at that summary. So Chuck had 1, 2, 3, 4, I guess about 8 sets of training plans. So thanks very much. The only thing was at some point during this meeting, or maybe if it's not ready yet, just to answer the negative bump there on the maintenance, or the repair and maintenance under transportation. Hopefully it's not positive, because if it's positive, that represents quite a percentage in increase.
Okay, so hopefully we get that answered by staff. And Chuck, just a comment to you, the training of our fire personnel is absolutely critical. And I know some years we don't get too many signed up into the Norwood situation, but this year appears to be a good year for training, and it comes and goes, that's all.
That's correct. We do have 7 new recruits, but 4 of them are attending the school. But there's a lot of other courses with the realignment of our new positions and promotions that we were not able to capture last year because of the pandemic and the restrictions on courses available. So we're trying to, we have additions this year, but then also trying to make up a little bit from last year.
Yeah, understandable. Go ahead, Paul.
I don't mind tackling the question from Deputy Mayor Mower about the decrease. So this is a concept that took me a little while to grasp and to figure out how this process flows within the budget. So I'm going to do my best to make this explanation as simple as possible, and I did try to make it as simple as possible in the email, but I understand that it's not simple. We have an internal rental system in the township. So we also budget for projects. So we have 3 types of projects that we budget for. We have operating projects, which are our sanding and salting, and use machines to do that, to complete that project. The next type of project we have are our capital projects. So when we do a piece of road work. And we need to capture the full cost of doing that project in order for when we capitalize and realize the full cost of that improvement to the road. And in order to do that project, we use our graders and loaders and all our heavy machinery. And so we budget, we have an internal rate, whether it's 75 or 100 or even $150 per machine hour. And so we budget for those machine hours to go into those projects. The third type of project that we have are what I would call machine projects. So for every major piece of machinery we have, we track the costs related to that machinery. So if there's repairs and maintenance, fuel, and then any staff time related to that machinery, we track that for each piece of equipment. So when we charge out that machinery to the project, whether it be operating or capital, there is an offsetting internal recovery of that rental. So, we're charging ourselves, so it's an in and out.
Yep.
And those machinery projects right now sit in operating. So for 2021, we have a couple of changes here. The first change is that there is a larger capital program within roads. And so therefore, we are charging out more machine hours into capital.
Okay.
And so we see that increase in capital. And so part of the decrease in operating is related to the chargeback of those pieces of equipment. What is also evident in this year's budget is in past year's budget, this in and out wasn't evident or wasn't clear because all of operating and capital were presented as one budget. So they offset each other and it didn't stand out. But now that I've pieced out capital and I've pieced out operating, these recovery rates are clear and it looks, kind of funny that you have something decreasing by negative 200,000. It took me a while to learn the history of this process and why we do it. I think there's two reasons why. The first is what I've already explained in terms of, if we think of doing a major roads project and we hired a company to do that project for us and we just contracted it all out, that company would figure out how much they're going to charge us for their equipment and it would all be built into their cost. But the fact that we do a lot of projects ourselves, we need to include those machinery costs into our capital cost. So that's one reason why we go through this process. The second reason is a little bit more of a historical reason, and it relates back to when we had to charge back some work and some fees to MTO. And my understanding is that this is just no longer a practice that's in place, but it's an internal practice that we've continued to do, and it just hasn't stopped. I think the benefits of this process are there in terms of recognizing the full cost of capital. But that is why you're seeing a decrease in that line item. There is the offsetting increase in the capital budget.
Very good explanation. I think it would be very helpful with this kind of process working, that if we had a year with little or no capital, it would be a lot better, easier for the manager to manage the going forward without it being a mix of capital and operating. So,
yeah, it's something that I think can be reviewed because of that exact issue, that you can get larger fluctuations with a year with a smaller capital program, and it may just be a reporting process in terms of those machinery projects, reporting them within the capital program rather than in the operating, or removing those internal rentals from the equation altogether. But it is something that can be reviewed going forward, so we don't see those larger fluctuations.
Good. Thank you very much. You mentioned an email. I must have missed that email.
That's okay.
Good. Okay, do other members of council want to review their questions and answers? If you do, put your hand up. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Watt.
Okay, actually, to start with, I just had the one there. My curiosity was about the replacement of the number 21 pickup truck at 46,000. I knew we had just got a new truck, a half-ton, let's call it, in the last couple of years, and I just didn't know whether that was a carry forward or whether that was something new or what had happened there. And I did get a very, very good explanation back from Jake about all the trucks being on a 10-year replacement schedule, but there had been some juggling in there. Truck 24 was new in 14 and replaced in 99. That was 5 years past the forecasted time. And 28 was the new one in 19, which replaced 2003, and that was 6 years past. So we've kind of fallen behind in things like, and this particular one here will replace a 2009 past, 2 years past in replacement, and delaying the purchase of these vehicles often leads to costly repairs and mechanical failure. The last one of the ones we got rid of just had to go for scrap. It was so bad. So, I mean, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I really don't want to change it. I just wasn't quite sure on it. The other one that I do have, and I apologize for not having it in there, and it's a quick one, and it was under the corporate part there, the general government with council. Contracted services. I'm not quite sure what contracted services are under council. I see last year it was the 2020 actual was 9,666. This year it's 35,500. So if there's an explanation just to where, it's probably just like the people in the office being designated to one thing, but I just wanted to get that cleared up because it is quite a substantial jump.
Can anyone answer that question? Yeah, Martina, maybe you have it on the top of your head.
Sorry, Councillor Watt, could you just clarify for me, were you looking at operations or capital? I just got a bit lost there.
The 2020 draft operating budget, which I'm looking at page 3 on it. And so it's 2021 draft operating budget. Page 3 of 17.
Carl?
Would that not be the contract that we had for the search for a CAO?
It could. Well, this is 2021, so it could very well be. I just wasn't quite sure. It's quite a jump. That's why I'm asking.
That was fairly pricey. Yeah.
34,000 we spent on that.
Mm-hmm. And much of that was charged in 2021, not 2020. So.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. No, that very good.
That was the reason then, was it? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Paul, okay, go ahead. Sheila. You're muted, Sheila.
Is that better?
Now we can hear you.
Oh. My question sort of relates to Tom's question about the contracted services. I just wonder, what is the definition of the contracted services? I know what a contract worker is, but it seems to be in many categories throughout, and I'm not quite sure what it is or what it relates to. So I don't know who can answer that.
Go ahead, Martina.
So there's some contracted services that you would see like in waste management. Those would be our curbside pickup collection contract. There's also other contracted services for all of the various studies we have to do on an annual basis. Those are all contracted items. In council, there's $3,000 there. That's under contracted services as well. That's for additional training for council. So any of those types of items where we hire an outside service to provide us a service to the inside would count as a contracted service. Is there
anything staff don't do that we have to contract out? Yeah.
Well, yes, thank you. I understand the concept.
Good.
Did you say they're contracted services under council of how much?
$3,000 for council training.
council benefits, contracted services, materials, other expenses, repairs and maintenance, salaries and wages, travel and training. There's no $3,000. The contract services are 35,500 and the travel and training is 13,400.
Let me pull up the right.
Go ahead, Paul.
What the budget package you're seeing is rolled up from our detailed GL accounts, and so when I look at the GL accounts that are hitting contracted services, and we'll get into the specifics of what's in the council specific budget there in a second, but it's the copier, security, answering services, garbage service, curbside pickup, internet service, airtime, licensing, the ride program, audit fees, legal fees, engineering fees, so any consulting fees.
So that's council's portion of that allocated to.
So these are all you asked, you saw in every kind of department. So these are all the GL accounts and all the specific items that are hitting that category. In terms of what is in specific to council, I believe that's what was being Martina was asking, but I wanted to clarify what is hitting across the organization in that category.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Is there anybody else? Go ahead, Heather.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, my questions mostly were to individual staff members with respect to specific items in the capital budget. Some clarification around some town hall upgrades, which satisfied my queries. Just looking for some more detail around that. Questions around the lime kiln project, to which I actually copied Councillor Landsman as the representative on that committee, who gave a more than fulsome explanation to satisfy my queries. A few minor just clarifications on some of the road projects. Over on the operating side, one question I failed to ask, and not to put Mr. Kramer on the spot, but hopefully you might be able to help out with this. Under the operating of both the Warsaw and Douro rinks, one of the costs that often, one of the highest costs, I guess, related to operating the rinks, is my understanding, are the energy costs. And I'm just not sure how that's reflected in the operating budget, because I don't see anything that's talking about energy costs specifically, and where that is allocated. And also, as the representative sitting on the Canada Day Parade Committee, I know we didn't submit a formal budget request of any sort, but I also noticed that there's no reference, even at $0, within the budget of that official committee of council. So just curious if that was an oversight in drafting the documents, or if it was because it was a $0 request.
I'll speak to the bless you. I'll speak to the first question regarding heating and running the facility, the utilities. So there is a utilities line within those cost centers. And there should be, anyways. I'll have to look specifically at that line item, but they're the last I checked. And when we went line by line on our budget review, that was part of our review. One interesting thing to note is, with the facilities being closed for a good chunk of last year, we did see a reduction in the actuals when we compared budget to actuals, and actuals from 2020 to previous years. The challenge we had in terms of budgeting for 2021 is just such an unknown in terms of what we are and are not going to be open. So there is, and what it actually showed is there is a variable portion to those costs. but a lot of it is fixed. That even just having the lights on and having that building exist, there's a cost to that, to the heating. I would appreciate the opportunity to kind of dig a little bit more if you have a more detailed question on the specific heating costs, or at least a few moments to bring that up. But if that answers your question, we did consider it. It is a part of the budget. And then the next question in terms of Canada Day, I may actually ask Mike Mood to jump in here. There may be costs as part of another account, but I do not recall any conversations specific to the Canada Day Parade.
Hey, hi, Paul. Yeah. As for the Santa Claus Parade, typically in the past, we have not done anything for that, to my recollection, as in putting in a budget for. That has been done by, I'm assuming, a different committee. So I'm not too sure where that should be at.
Was there ever a request for a budget for the Canada Day Parade? I don't ever recall in the past. It was community. It was community organized up till a couple of years ago. Heather?
Yes, that's right, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I, as the rep on that committee, for 2020, we had a request, a modest request of about $1,000 that was put through, mostly for staff support, photocopying, that kind of thing, to be allocated to. Of course, the parade ended up not happening in July of 2020, but nor were there any funds spent as a result of that. So I know that the committee is eager to look at what a potential parade could look like in 2021, and would be looking for those funds to be reallocated back to the committee.
So,
and if I may, just to circle back to you, Mr. Kramer, with respect to the energy costs for those rinks, I guess my question is much more generic at this point. What line do I see them in the paperwork, in the budget that was distributed to us? Where do we see that? Because I don't see it under the rink lines specifically, unless it's bundled in under, I don't even know what it would be, under repairs and maintenance perhaps, or so I was just looking for some direction as to what those costs even are, even though they're fixed costs for the most part.
I will be able to answer if you. I'll just need a couple minutes to find it in the actual document, and then I have no problem responding.
Okay, Carl, you can jump in while he looks.
I believe the hydro is on the contract services. I think I asked a similar question in previous years. Could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's where it is.
Martina, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. In our large GL document that we have, that every line is broken down, the code 33110 is the hydro code. And I can see that there are allocations for every building in the hydro section. So I know that Paul had wrapped up a lot of the GL accounts into larger accounts. So I'm sure he'll be able to find that information, but I can clearly see that money has been allocated through the GL documents for those line items. Our server also just went down, just so everyone knows. So it may be taking us a little longer to find the information for you.
Okay. Your server went down, is that what you said, Martina?
Yeah, there's some type of update that's happening, so it should come back in a few minutes.
Okay, gotcha.
Good timing.
Okay, well, there's a question hanging in the tree. Is there anyone else?
Sorry.
Martina?
Sorry, there was a question about the Canada Day Parade Committee.
Yes.
I don't believe the candidate parade committee has its own operating line because they've always, well, we've only done it twice now, and 2020 was canceled because they've always had such a small line. It's only $1,000. It just comes out of the community events.
That would answer that then, Heather, I think. Yeah. And
Thank you very much.
Let's cross our fingers that we can have a Canada Day parade this year. It's still not guaranteed, that's for sure. Sheila, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you to Martina or Alana or Paul. When this is all completed, all the discussion tonight, will there be a new copy of the budget sent out? And because there are changes, I understand.
Yes, that's a very good question, and I did actually mean to mention that the planned process would be that any changes that arise from tonight's meeting or anything, the changes that I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, and anything that happens, before now and when the bylaw is finished, will be included into a final budget package. So we've created a draft. We've been tracking and noting any changes along the way. And then when we will produce a very similar package to the draft package that will be the final, and that will be also posted on our website and will be what can be referred to going forward.
And what about the public meeting component of this?
In what sense, sorry?
In giving the public an opportunity to comment. Martina, do you have a better answer to that?
Sure. So Paul participated in this as well, but all of our meetings have been public meetings. They've all been live on YouTube. Public's been able to submit comments. We also ran ads specifically for tonight's meeting, and we designed the agenda to allow the public to participate.
Okay, that's fine. Yep.
As you can see, we have one comment for later that I'll bring up, but no one signed up to speak.
Okay, no, that's great. As long as that opportunity has been there, I just want to make sure. Go ahead, Carl.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased with the way this has gone. I thank all the managers for all their work. Paul, thanks for your coordination of it. And I'm quite pleased to move forward very soon, if not tonight. But I have one final question, and that's to the roads capital project. I think, Jake, maybe a month ago, you talked to us about certain issues about the capital budget and so on, and we basically gave you agreement in principle. Are there any other major changes there that we should know about? I haven't gone through each project to compare it to what was on the previous, but are there any items on there that might be problematic if we don't address them in some fashion in 2021?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, not necessarily. There was a couple of projects that we removed prior to
Right.
submitting this, but no, there's nothing there that is in dire straits to complete this year. However, some of that capital, as the discussions we had earlier, includes more detailed work, which kind of relates to the maintenance of the roads.
Right.
So a lot of these projects are very detailed with ditching and brushing and so on involved in them. So it will help with our maintenance down the road.
Good. Well, that gives me more reassurance, and I'm sure there'll be surprises. There always is. So that's part of the thing we play. So I would have. Well, okay. That I'm very satisfied. And whether other members of council are ready to move on this, but I'm certainly getting very, very close.
Well, I think this process has been absolutely wonderful, and I think we could probably entertain a motion to have staff do the changes and prepare a bylaw for the next meeting. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I echo Carl's comments there, and I'm sure the rest of council's right in yourself. very, very, very detailed. It's easy to understand. It's been a lot of work put in by people and stuff like that. And I see staff has really, really looked hard at what we want and what we need and so like that. And just another comment on Jake's reply to me, just so council knows and staff knows, also on this year's plan, to replace equipment, our John Deere backhoe was another one that could have popped up this year to be replaced because it is the time for replacement. It's working well, it's doing what they need, so he's pushed that one off too, which is, it's going to come sooner or later, but I mean, it's really helping this year's budget. So we really do appreciate that type of commitment from our staff.
Okay, so Paul, Martina, Alana, to follow our process, are you happy with the concept of doing the changes and preparing a bylaw and coming to the next meeting for approval? Martina, I think you have your hand up.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think before council passes a motion or someone introduces a resolution, I would like to just read the one comment we had from the public because it was specifically requested that it be read out at the meeting.
Okay, no, please do. Go ahead.
Thank you. So this was a comment that I received via email from Brett Condon. I'm going to read it verbatim. It says, to Douro-Dummer Council, my name is Brett Condon and I help run the Douro Men's Fastball League on Friday and Monday nights. Over the past number of years, the topic has been brought up about installing field drainage at the South Ball Diamond and adding new infield clay. I would like to voice my opinion on why I believe this should take place. The South Diamond is the primary fastball field in Douro, which includes our men's leagues, approximately 4 leagues for kids aged 6 to 16, a Thursday night 3-pitch league, a 3-pitch tournament, and the Douro Doings. The North Park is strictly used for 3-pitch as it has a gravel infield and would not be suitable for sliding and fastball. Over the years, the clay infield at the South Diamond has started to wear off, and the stones are starting to appear. The clay in the batter's boxes and pitcher mounds had broken off, which created deep holes and were causing injuries. In 2018, I was able to acquire new clay blocks from Marco Clay to temporarily fix these holes, but the issues still remain for the rest of the field. A new layer of clay is needed to restore the infield. The second issue is the lack of drainage in the outfield. Mr. Condon has attached some pictures that were part of your agenda. So he said he attached pictures that we took in 2019 of the outfield, and as you can see, the amount of water on the field has made it unplayable. These pictures were taken on June 14th, which is quite late for this amount of water to still be laying on the field. Many leagues in our area, including ours, start during the last week of May. These leagues remained on the schedule for 2019, while we were unable to play until late June. The outfield has always had issues of being very unlevel, which not only creates dangerous bounces and running conditions for the players, but also makes it difficult for water to properly drain off the field during the spring. In closing, with kids teams starting to make a comeback in fastball and the frequent use of men's leagues and 3-pitch leagues, I believe it would be very beneficial to add a new clay infield and outfield drainage system. This ensures the safety of players and avoids delays in the season. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And there were no other submitted comments, right, Martina?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. That was the only public comment received.
Now, can I turn to Mike about this project? What's involved with that, Mike? And have you been involved with any of that kind of planning before?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I met with the contracted company not last year, the year before prior, because of these issues. And we went through what is needed for this field to bring it back up to a safety level that for the players. So that was what was brought forth for the budget for last year's with the $50,000 because we weren't able to complete that project last year. The increase in the costs and materials and everything has gone up, and that's why the additional $10,000 was being requested for this year. But we're looking forward to trying to get this all rectified for these groups, and I know a lot of those users are wanting this project to go through as well.
Okay, so that is indeed satisfying the request of Mr. Condon that he had his concerns.
Yeah.
Carl, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. After the capital budget project, I sent a note to Mike asking if were there been any commitments on that contract as yet, and the answer to that was no. So I think there's also an opportunity there for some capital contribution by some of our business people on this. Evan Root Center, I think Kevin Monaghan have done very well with opportunities like this. I think we as council and staff, senior staff, we've got to develop a strategy of how to approach it, but I'd be quite willing to get involved with this and maybe have some major asks. We could even look at naming the ball field after a certain company or whatever, because I think there's opportunity there. It's a community project, and there are people out there that were quite willing to come forward with contribution to the community. So I think it's a strategy that we should look at and consider. Maybe we'll get to no place on it, but I think it's something we should get started very soon. I have
it's a trend now. Yep.
I have two or three ideas of who to ask.
Okay, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Mike, I know we've talked about the tile drainage, it's come up before, and we had looked into it, stuff like that. But this is the first I've heard of the clay infield. Would this budget also be able to cover the cost? I don't know what that involves. I have no idea. So would our new budget with the extra 10,000 also be able to accommodate that the clay you recommended or needed for the infield?
Part of that original quote or budget was to include the clay infield. It was clay infield and tile drainage. As of last year as well. So it is to cover that cost.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, Heather, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Deputy Mayor Moher, I like your idea with respect to looking for some sponsorships. I believe that the arenas committee, and that's always been a topic of conversation for arenas as well, to increase those sponsorship opportunities. Given the current economic climate, however, I don't know if proceeding expeditiously on it makes sense in that capacity. I mean, certainly putting our feelers out there to see. There are some businesses that are thriving, but certainly many others that aren't. So just to be cognizant of that, I wouldn't want that to delay the work at all that's being proposed. Just some food for thought as well.
Two or three meetings will not take that long, and some contractors are quite. They appreciate being asked.
Alana, can you add something, please?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Deputy Mayor and Council. I do like the idea of going out and seeking out those sponsorships, taking part in that during our community center development in Cabin Monaghan. It is a bit of an extensive process. It's not something as easy as just asking and receiving that money from a municipal standpoint. You do have to have an entity that can kind of filter that through for you. Given the fact that this was budgeted for in 2020 and not completed, there's some additional cost now to do it in 2021. I would suggest with this one, we move forward, but staff would be happy to take a look at other opportunities that might be available for our arenas or other recreation facilities that we have, and those in the community that might be willing to support those by way of donation.
Good, and we're quite fortunate you've had some experience in that direction too recently. Okay, good discussion. Carl, did I get the feeling you were going to make a motion so we could move on?
I'm quite happy with the budget. Thanks to everyone. I would move forward with the proposed budget that's in front of us.
And prepare a bylaw for the next meeting?
Yes.
Is there a seconder to that motion, please? Who will second that motion? Councillor Watt. Comment on the motion, please. Go ahead, Heather.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do support the motion that's on the table. One comment that I have specifically, I noticed that a lot of the items that are coming forward in the budget are attributing it to the funding coming through the efficiency funding program that we received in 2019 through the provincial government. So I would like to just informally ask that that staff report back to council just kind of the status on that, so that we know where those funds are at, where those remaining funds are at, because I know some of the projects that are coming forward weren't ones that were identified in 2019 because needs and money has changed. during that time. So I very much support what's coming forward. I'm excited to see the projects move forward in 2021, but I certainly would like to see how we can best leverage that efficiency funding in the future.
Good. We'll get staff to update us on that. Sheila, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, or actually probably to you, if this motion is passed, that does not take away the future discussion that may take place at the public meeting, or anything that may come up if we get the revised
No, you'll,
any revised
prior to
figures.
passing the bylaw, you'd be able to ask any questions. And we just addressed the public, all of these have been public meetings, and questions have been submitted. So what we're saying is there won't be one big public meeting.
No, my only comment is the fact that I think it's been said that there have been a couple of changes to this. And if there are any additional changes, we can't approve the copy we have. This is my only comment. If there's changes, I would like to see copies of changes. So, but I'm happy that it move forward and that bylaw be prepared, as long as there is the opportunity to react to any potential changes.
So the new budget the new corrected document will be presented, and that's what the bylaw will be wrapped around. And you'll have every opportunity to say what you want about that at that time.
Thank you.
Just in terms of that document, I would request that document be pulled together after the bylaw is passed. It takes quite a bit of time to format and to bring all those tables together. So my request is that final package be done once the budget is passed. I can do a staff report summarizing the changes that have come to date, and that could be brought forward with the bylaw, introducing the bylaw. However, the complete package, it does take quite a bit of time and effort. So, you know, I would hate to spend a day or half a day putting it together, and then there be one little change and it throws you know, all the tables out, and I have to update them all. But I do understand that you want to see the flow of changes that have come to date. So what I can do is a brief little staff report summarizing those changes and giving a summary of where the budget is at and introducing the bylaw.
And some of the little subtle changes that we've made. That would be fine. Just perfect.
Thank you.
Okay, before I call for the vote, Alana, any closing comments on the whole shooting match?
Mr. Mayor, I don't think so. Just again, thank you to Paul and Martina and the rest of the staff, and for council's participation. I'm happy that everybody is satisfied with what's been presented this evening, and it seems like we have a good budget moving forward.
Thank you. So, Carl, your motion then is to move things forward to the next meeting to prepare a bylaw and to have staff prepare a report on the changes and move forward at the next meeting, right?
Yep.
And Tom, that's what you're seconding. I'm going to call for the vote. All in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved. Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you very much, staff, for making it a much easier process and much more understandable. So thank you for that. Okay, delegations, a motion to receive that delegation, I guess, is what we need to be official. To receive Paul's presentation. Councillor Watt, Councillor Watson, all in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved. A motion to receive that correspondence from Brett Condon about the South Ball Diamond. Carl moves, Sheila seconds, all in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved. And that's it, Martina. No other comments to announce? And I'm going to call for a motion to adjourn the meeting, please. Oh, Paul, you're too willing. And you can't make a motion to adjourn, Paul.
No, I cannot. Through you, Your Worship, I just want to, I did have a moment there to find where the utilities sit in the facilities, and they do sit in contracted services. I could agree that utilities may be a better spot for them, and that can be reviewed and updated, if not in the final budget package this year, but in future budgets.
Okay, thank you. Motion to adjourn then. Who did that, Martina? Sorry, did we even get that far before Paul interrupted?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there's no motion on the table.
Okay, who's going to make the motion to adjourn? Sheila? And a seconder, please. Heather, all in favor? All opposed? That motion's approved. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll connect again at our next meeting. And thank you to the many people who have watched this meeting tonight. Thank you all very much. Please stay safe.
Thank you.
Right.